The cold metal bars of the shelter rattled every time someone walked past, and Rex would lift his head, his deep brown eyes filled with a faint, desperate hope. For 5 long years, that hope had become his only companion. Once a proud German shepherd trained to protect and love, he now sat quietly in the corner of his kennel, watching countless families come and go. They'd stop, smile at the puppies, maybe glance at him, then move on. He'd wag his tail anyway, even when they didn't notice. Because somewhere deep inside, Rex still believed his day would come. The day when someone would finally see him, not just as an old sheltered dog, but as a soul waiting to love again. Every evening when the shelter lights dimmed and silence fell, Rex would rest his head on his paws and dream. He'd dream of open fields, the feel of grass beneath his feet, and a gentle hand scratching behind his ears. The volunteers loved him, but they could only do so much. They whispered to him, a someday boy, someday someone will come. And he would wag his tail softly, as if to say, I know. Seasons changed, snow melted, flowers bloomed, and still Rex remained. Dogs who had arrived after him were adopted within weeks, while his name on the roster became a permanent fixture. Hope was all he had left. One rainy afternoon, a little girl named Lily came to the shelter with her father. Her tiny rain boots splashed through puddles as she peeked into the kennels, her curious eyes scanning every face. When she reached Rex's cage, he didn't rush to the bars like the others. He simply sat, calm and gentle, watching her. Something in his eyes caught her heart, a mix of sadness and kindness she couldn't explain. She turned to her dad and said softly, "This one's lonely." Her father knelt beside her, reading the tag on the gate. Rex, age 8. Been here 5 years. His brow furrowed. That's a long time, sweetheart. Lily nodded solemnly, her little hand reaching toward Rex's paw through the bars. The moment their fingers and paw touched, Rex didn't bark or jump. He just pressed his paw softly against her hand, as if to reassure her that he was safe. The shelter volunteer, watching from afar, wiped away a tear. She had seen countless meet and greets before, but this was different. There was a silence, a quiet connection that filled the space between the child and the dog. "Would you like to meet him?" the volunteer asked gently. Lily nodded eagerly. As the door opened and Rex stepped out, he moved carefully, his tail low but wagging, his eyes searching for permission. When Lily knelt down and hugged him, something inside him broke, years of loneliness melting away in one small embrace. Rex's adoption papers were signed that same day. The shelter staff gathered around, some cheering, some crying quietly, as they watched their oldest resident finally walk out through the doors he had entered so many years ago. But as Rex stepped outside into the open air, he hesitated. For 5 years, the shelter had been his world, the smells, the sounds, even the cold floor where he slept. Now he stood on grass for the first time in what felt like forever. He looked up at the sky, his ears twitching at the sound of birds. Lily's father noticed his stillness and said softly, "He's just remembering what freedom feels like." The car ride home was quiet but full of emotion. Lily sat beside Rex, her small fingers running through his fur as raindrops raced down the window. "You're safe now," she whispered, and though he couldn't understand the words, he felt their warmth. Every mile that passed seemed to wash away the years of waiting, the loneliness, the rejection. By the time they reached home, Rex had already started to believe that maybe, just maybe, this was real. The door opened, and for the first time in years, he entered a house, not a cage. His paws touched carpet, his nose filled with the scent of family, of belonging. That first night, Rex couldn't sleep. He lay beside Lily's bed, watching her breathe softly under her blanket. Every time she stirred, his tail would wag lightly. He didn't know how to rest yet, not after so many nights in the shelter's cold silence. Around midnight, Lily woke up and saw him awake. She slid off her bed, curled up beside him on the floor, and whispered, "You can sleep, Rex. You're home now." You're home now. But one day, something unexpected happened. While on a walk in the park, Rex suddenly froze. His ears perked, his body stiffened. Across the path stood a man, older, rough around the edges, holding a cane. The man's eyes widened as he whispered, "Rex?" Lily's father looked puzzled. "Do you know him?" The man nodded slowly, his voice trembling. "He was my dog 5 years ago." The words hung heavy in the air, and even Rex seemed confused, tilting his head as if trying to remember a dream he once had. The air grew still, and everyone knew this was no ordinary meeting.
The man's hands shook as he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a worn, creased photograph. It showed a younger version of himself in military uniform, kneeling beside a proud, strong German shepherd. "Rex! You saved my life," the man whispered, tears forming in his eyes. "We served together as soldiers, but when I got injured, I couldn't keep him. I thought he'd been adopted years ago." Lily's father stood silent, unsure what to say. Lily hugged Rex tightly, as if afraid someone would take him away. Rex looked between them, confusion and emotion flickering in his eyes. And memories he'd buried deep began to stir. The scent of dust, gunfire, and the sound of the man's voice calling his name. For a moment, it felt like time froze. The old soldier took a shaky step forward, his cane tapping against the ground. "Hey, buddy," he murmured softly. You remember me?" Softly, "Do you remember me?" Rex didn't move at first. Then slowly, he approached, sniffing the man's trembling hands. Something clicked inside him. A familiar scent, a faint echo of commands and loyalty. His tail began to wag, cautiously at first, then faster, then faster. The man fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face as Rex leaned in, pressing his head into the man's chest. It was as if 5 lost years had melted away in that single embrace. Lily and her father watched silently, realizing this moment was bigger than all of them. The reunion was heartbreaking and beautiful all at once. The man, whose name was Jack, explained how he had spent years trying to find Rex after his medical discharge. He had called shelters, searched adoption lists, but records were lost. When he finally gave up, he assumed Rex had found another family. Hearing that Rex had spent all those years waiting broke him. "He waited for me," Jack said quietly. 5 years, and I never came back." Lily's father placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Maybe it wasn't too late. Maybe he was waiting for this, for both of you to heal. Jack nodded, though his eyes never left Rex. Lily, small but brave, looked up at the old soldier and said, "You loved him once." "We loved him once. We love him now. Maybe he can have both?" Her words, innocent yet wise, carried a truth that silenced everyone. Jack smiled weakly, nodding. "You're right, sweetheart. He deserves the whole world." From that day, an unusual friendship began. 2 families bound by one loyal heart. Jack visited often, bringing treats and old training toys. Sometimes he'd sit quietly with Rex, telling stories of their time in service, and Rex would rest his head on his knee, as if listening. It wasn't ownership anymore. It was reunion, closure, love rediscovered in its purest form. Months passed, and Rex seemed younger, livelier, as if life had finally come full circle. He split his time between Lily's home and Jack's little cabin outside town. Wherever he went, he carried joy with him. At the shelter, his story spread like wildfire. People came to see the dog who had waited 5 years and reunited with his soldier. Donations poured in, helping other long-term dogs find homes. Rex had become a symbol, not of sadness, but of faith. The shelter staff, who once cried the day he left, now smiled, proud that his journey had changed lives beyond their walls. But fate had one more chapter to write. One cold winter morning, Jack didn't show up for his usual walk with Rex. Lily's father called, but there was no answer. Yeah. Hours later, they found out Jack had passed away peacefully in his sleep. The news hit Rex hard. He sat by the door for hours, ears perked, waiting for footsteps that would never come. That night, he howled softly, a sound filled with both sorrow and gratitude. Lily hugged him tight, whispering, "He loved you, Rex, and we love you too." Though he couldn't understand, he felt her warmth and knew that love doesn't end when someone's gone. It only changes form. As the days went by, Rex slowly returned to his routine, though a piece of him always seemed elsewhere. Perhaps with Jack, running freely, somewhere beyond pain and time. Lily often found him staring at the sky. The world wept when his story went public. News channels covered it, calling Rex the dog who waited. People from across the world sent letters, flowers, and donations in his name. The shelter built a small memorial, a statue of Rex, with the inscription, "For those who wait with hope, loves who wait with hope, love always finds the way." Lily, now older, often visited with her own dog, touching the statue's paw and smiling through tears. "You changed my life," she'd whisper, "and so many others." In the end, Rex's legacy wasn't just about waiting. It was about believing, even when the world forgets you. And somewhere beyond time, where fields stretch forever and every soul is free, Rex runs again, strong, proud, and young. Beside the man he once saved and the girl he once loved, the wind carries their laughter, soft and eternal. Because love like that never dies. It only waits until it's found again. Years later, Lily stood in front of a crowd at an animal rescue fundraiser. Her voice trembled as she told Rex's story, the dog who had waited 5 long years and changed countless hearts. Behind her, a photo of Rex appeared on the big screen. The same gentle eyes that had once stared through cold shelter bars, now full of life and love. "Rex taught me that patience is love in disguise," she said softly. "He showed me that even when the world forgets you, kindness can still find you." The audience sat in silence, moved to tears. That night, donations broke all records, every dollar going to help older dogs find families just like Rex's. After the event, as Lily packed her notes, an elderly woman approached. She held a leash, and beside her stood a timid senior Labrador with gray fur. "I wasn't going to adopt him," the woman confessed, "until I heard your story. I realized he's just waiting for someone to see him, the way you saw Rex." Lily smiled through misty eyes and knelt to pet the dog. "He's lucky," she said softly. "You both are." That moment became one of many small miracles inspired by Rex, proof that love multiplies when it's shared. In time, Lily started her own rescue organization, the Rex Foundation for Forgotten Paws. Its mission was simple: no dog left waiting. The shelter that had once housed Rex became the Foundation's first partner. She transformed it from cold cages into warm sanctuaries. Each kennel with soft beds, toys, and volunteers trained not just to care, but to connect. Above the entrance, she hung a sign that read, "A love always finds the way. Rex's promise." Visitors often paused beneath it, feeling something deeper than words, a sense of hope that lingered in the air. Every year on the anniversary of Rex's adoption, Lily hosted a Rex Day where families who had adopted older or special needs dogs came together. They shared stories, laughter, and tears. Children played in the park while dogs ran free, tails wagging in the sunlight. Some wore tags engraved with Rex's name. Others carried small ribbons symbolizing patience and loyalty. It became more than an event. It was a movement. People from across the country came to celebrate the dog who had waited, loved, and taught them what it meant to never give up. And but one year, during the ceremony, a reporter asked Lily, "Did you ever wish Rex had lived longer?" She smiled gently, looking toward the sky. "He lived long enough to change the world," she said, "and that's more than most of us ever do." The wind picked up then, carrying the scent of blooming flowers. For a fleeting moment, Lily could almost hear the familiar sound of paws running across grass, the faint jingle of a collar. She closed her eyes, whispering, "Miss you, boy," and somewhere, in that unseen place where hearts meet beyond time, Rex was running toward her, tail wagging like always. As years turned to decades, Rex's legacy only grew. Schools taught his story and lessons about empathy and perseverance. Shelters named kennels after him. Even a children's book titled Rex Waited Too became a bestseller, helping young readers understand compassion. Lily, now gray-haired herself, often sat by the memorial statue with her grandkids. This is where it all began, she'd tell them. They'd listen wide-eyed, imagining the brave dog who waited 5 years and changed so many lives. Oh, is he real, Grandma? They'd ask. And she'd smile softly, touching the bronze paw, more real than most people ever get to be. When Lily's time finally came, she was laid to rest near the same park where she had first met Rex as a little girl. The townspeople placed flowers, not only on her grave, but on Rex's memorial, too. Memorial, too. Someone carved a simple line beneath his statue. Reunited at last. That night, as the moonlight spilled across the grass, a gentle breeze moved through the trees, and some swore they heard it. The faint sound of paws running, two hearts, side by side once more. In the years that followed, the Rex Foundation expanded globally. Even now, people still visit the shelter where Rex's story began. They pause by the old kennel that used to be his, now transformed into a quiet memorial corner, free. Sometimes a scared new dog will sit there waiting, and a visitor will kneel and whisper, "Don't worry, Rex waited too." And almost magically, that simple reminder turns hesitation into hope, fear into love, fear into love. It's as if his spirit still lingers there, guiding both people and dogs toward the family they've been waiting for. And so, the legend of Rex, the German shepherd who waited 5 years for love, lives on not in fame or photographs, but in every act of kindness sparked by his memory. His story is whispered wherever compassion blooms. Because in the end, Rex didn't just find a family. He built one that spanned generations. He proved that love doesn't have an expiration date. It only waits, quietly, faithfully, until the world is ready to receive it. Your